see if YouTube is working. Hello out there. Let me know where you're from, and we'll get started in just a moment. Here we go. Now it looks like... All right, we should be live. Here we go. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com, and welcome to another live video here on YouTube. Today, the English Fluency Guide is going to talk with you about the inner circle of... Oh, look at that. Garizo no chinfo, come on. までやってきたね。よかったですよ。So we're going to talk about the inner circle of English. And this is because I got a question from a learner. Actually, I've received this many times, but people, you know, they're always trying to get to that next level, just like I am with my own Japanese. And when I hear from people that, like, as soon as they can understand one level, they want to get to that next level. And this comment was specifically about being able to have conversations with people one-on-one and being able to do that quite well. But as soon as you have a native speaker or a group of native speakers, then it becomes much more difficult to understand people. So I'll draw this. Actually, let me erase the board. But I thought this would be an interesting problem to explain. I'll come back and check chat in just a moment, make sure. I think we are working though. But the typical situation, you have kind of these three levels of English. So the lowest level is where you can understand a teacher. So, I mean, obviously you can go even lower than that, but for the people that can maybe understand some movies or follow conversations, so we'll just put this, I don't know, we'll just say this is level 3, like the lowest level for people that can actually understand some English. So this is like teacher English. The teacher English, like the kind of textbook English, and this isn't bad, that you should be able to understand a lot of this, and natives will use this vocabulary also. But you can hear the way I'm speaking, it's much more clear, slower, easier to understand. I'm not using a lot of movie quotes or references that you might not know. So this is typical textbook English. Now the next level up from this is being able to understand natives one-on-one. So you're having a conversation with a native person, they're not a speaker, and maybe they say some things that they're not so careful with their language, like I'm careful with my language. So I want to make sure I'm understandable so people can follow what I'm saying. But natives, they might not assume that you understand everything, or you know, they want to make sure they're able to have a conversation with you, but it might be a little bit difficult or more difficult than typical textbook English because they're not as careful with their language. So typically the speed goes up as you go up these levels. The speed goes up, the quality of the speech goes down. So maybe people mumble a little bit, or they're not able to express themselves very clearly, and they're also using more conversational speech. All right, and so the highest level up here is when you can be in a group of native speakers and actually understand what they're saying to each other, and they also communicate with you at that native natural level. All right, so we'll just call this like group communication. I'll just put com there for that. So group communication, meaning that when you're in a group of people, so if you're just talking like with one person, so this is you talking with another native over here, maybe they're a little bit easier to understand, but as soon as this second or third native comes to the conversation, they join the conversation, and now they are talking, you know, back and forth with each other, and you might not understand what they're talking about, okay? And so usually what happens at these levels is that one-on-one, the person is actually trying to tailor their communication to you. So the person, especially if they want to make sure they're clear, or they're trying to explain something, they want to make sure you can understand some instructions or whatever, they're trying to be clear, and they will tailor their speech to you. Just like a native speaker would tailor their speech if I'm speaking to a person in my company, or if I'm speaking to my boss, or if I'm speaking to a customer, or I'm speaking to a child, I'm going to change the way I speak. All right. And so often what happens with natives is a person thinks, wow, like I can actually have a conversation one-on-one with a native. But the kind of real test is, are you able to understand things at the same level when you hear two natives talking with each other? All right. Now, this can be difficult even for native speakers when we just don't know what someone is talking about. So as an example, maybe I work at a company and I'm a native English speaker. I speak with people all the time and at my company, but there's a special group or some part of the company, they have a project they're working on and they have all these code words or special terminology or something like that I just wouldn't know. So they could have a conversation with each other about something, about product design or marketing or some scientific thing or something that I just don't know the vocabulary. So I'm not in the inner circle. So this is the way people are always kind of, this is part of the psychology of language learning and communication in general, where it's not just about the vocabulary, we're also trying to make connections with people, and part of language is actually creating like in groups and out groups with other people. And so typically there's like slang. Slang is a kind of interesting thing about language learning because you will have a group creates some kind of slang. Hopefully this makes sense. I'm going to erase this over here. But just to talk about how the language changes, especially with young people. So you might start with a small group of people, or even just two people in a group that are talking about something, and they have their own special way of describing something. So we can call this like inside, so some kind of inside joke, or just some kind of inner community language or something like that, where they know what they're talking about, but the other people outside of that group do not. Okay, so the point of this inside vocabulary, or just for the people who are communicating, it's like a code for them to speak and understand just among themselves. And the people outside of that, maybe they hear that and they're outside, they're not in the inner circle, and so they don't know what those people are talking about. Now, usually what happens with slang is more people will start hearing something, like you have even technology is created, like the word internet. So this was, I don't know, however many years ago, when the internet was just being created, very few people knew what the internet was. And so you have the people that are creating the technology and people using the technology, and it's just a few people in this small group. And the majority of people are outside of that circle, so they don't know what the vocabulary is. So this is not a problem with fluency, it's really a problem of like just being inside and knowing what that vocabulary is. Okay, so at that kind of highest level of native English, you don't have to feel bad if you don't understand like some movie quote that somebody used that you just haven't seen the movie and you don't know what people are talking about. All right, so it is possible to learn more and to be able to join more of these inner circle groups. I'm going to talk more about that in this video, but I just want to explain why this works. And the reason the language continues to change is because people always want to make some kind of cool, like inside group that other people are not a part of. So as soon as this circle starts getting bigger, so the circle is moving out because more people are starting to learn about the internet or whatever the vocabulary is, then it's not cool anymore. So it's not interesting or unique or different. It doesn't make you special if everybody is doing it. All right? So what do? You create a new thing, and then you create new language around that. So some of these people, like they move over here, and they're not maybe physically moving anywhere, but this is just the idea of how language changes. And sometimes it's just a real thing like technology, or it's just actual vocabulary that people use to say like, oh, that's cool, or that's groovy, or vocabulary like that people used in one generation and they don't use anymore. All right? So hopefully, just so you understand about this, I don't want you to feel bad if you don't understand like always, but that's I just want to explain why that happens. Okay, so it's probably the same thing in your life, in your native language. You have different ways of speaking with different people. Like you speak if you're married, you have certain vocabulary with your wife or husband or family that you don't use outside of the family, like a family joke or family vocabulary for something like recipes or whatever that other people might not use. And so that's not really about fluency. It's just a lack of knowledge because you're not in the inner circle. All right. So how do you get in the inner circle for the people you do want to speak with? In this case, there are basically two things you're trying to do. I'll get to that in just a moment. Let me check chat and make sure everybody is following me so far. If you are enjoying this, click the like button and let people know that you are. Let's see. Hi, Choo Choo. All right, so Renee says, greetings from Brazil. Have you discovered this method of learning a new language on your own? All right, I'll be very, very quick about this. The idea about learning English as a first language is what everybody does in their native language already. So the way you learn your language or the way anybody else learns their language, everybody is learning their language as a first language because there's no other way to do it. So if I have a child, so this is me, and this is my child over here, and my language, let's just say the only language I know is Spanish. And so I can't like use translations to teach my child because how else would they understand them? I can't like if I'm trying to teach Spanish to my child, I'm not going to use Chinese to try to teach them Spanish. Because they don't know Chinese either. So the point is like they have to learn the language in the language. All right. So you can't use textbooks. You can't use like flashcards or whatever. The only thing and not using translations, obviously, the only thing you can do is make the language understandable. Okay, and how do we make a language understandable? Well, we could give you something to look at or something to hold, or we're going to compare different things. Like, look, this is a blue marker and this is a red marker. And as you get these little contrasts, then people understand the language without needing any translations. And again, in this way, there's nothing you can do besides teach this way. So you have to teach the language as a first language. Now, what's interesting is that people kind of forget this when they go to learn an additional language. So they think, well, okay, I already know, so now this child gets a little bit bigger and that child wants to learn Chinese. So what they should do is actually learn Chinese directly from someone who speaks Chinese and knows how to make Chinese understandable. All right? But usually what they do is they try to go back through Spanish and try to learn Chinese that way. And so they will think in Spanish as they're trying to learn Chinese. All right. So I didn't discover anything new. All I'm really doing is looking at how people learn languages and taking the natural way that everybody learns their native language and just making that possible for people to do in English. And really the goal of all this, when we say like making something understandable, again, like, comparing some different things, or I could have you taste something. So if I want to explain what orange tastes like the fruit, an orange or an apple, it's better just to actually like bite some of that and try the flavor. And so you understand what that means. Like that's how we learn different flavors or, things like that. So you can see something, but the point is to understand what it means. You're connecting some idea or situation with a sound. All right, so that like the word of the language, whatever that is. So when I hear something, I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm making a connection with that. And so instead of trying to learn things through an additional language, it's much easier just to learn it directly. But most people don't do this. And there are a few reasons why most people don't do this. The first one is that it's faster to try to pass a test if I just give you a bunch of translations. So when I go to a school to try to learn a language, typically the teacher is going to give me, they're going to use at least some of my native language to help me learn the new language. They should not be doing that. They shouldn't have to do that if they know how to teach well. But a lot of people do, because I can just give you more information faster and just give you a translation and tell you what it means. But the problem is that teaches you to translate and think in your head when you speak, and that stops you from communicating. So it seems like it's a faster way to learn, but it ends up taking you a lot of time, and this is why many people study English for years and never become fluent. Years. All right. And so again, I want to make it clear, like, I didn't discover this. It's really me spending a lot of time thinking about how to make language understandable for people, because I'm also a language learner, learning Japanese. And if I'm not confident about something, if I don't understand something, whatever that piece of the language is, then I'm not going to feel very confident about saying it. All right. And so most people are very nervous about speaking or nervous about saying a particular thing if they don't feel confident about saying it. So the fastest way to become fluent in a language is to destroy the doubts that stop you from speaking that language. All right. The fastest way to speak a language, to become a good speaker, is to destroy the doubts that stop you from speaking. So if you understand something a little bit, you can maybe recognize it in conversations, but if you don't really feel confident that you'll say it correctly, you probably won't speak, all right? So all of these things are just like, it's more things I noticed about the way people learn, okay? So that's why I talk a lot about destroying doubt and really helping people understand English rather than just giving videos about here's some vocabulary or whatever. So I do have vocabulary lessons, but if you understand these ideas, it's much faster and you become fluent much faster. Anyway, good question. If you'd like to know more about that, you can click on the link in the description to learn more about Fluent for Life. Frederick is also an app that's available for you to help you with their spelling, listening, pronunciation, and that will explain you, basically show you how this works. It actually shows you how to learn English the same way kids do, all in English. So if you have any young children, especially, it's a lot of apps, or there are a lot of apps that they basically use like translations, or they don't allow you to control like how people can, basically let you control the language. So the ideal way to learn is if you like by yourself could manipulate, like, okay, like I have these things here, and the machine or whatever, the person is going to tell me what they mean, but maybe I change these, or I use a different object or something like that. If you can control that, then you can actually discover what the meaning of the things is, and then you can become a fluent speaker much faster. So that's what Frederick allows you to do, but it allows you to do that with grammar and pronunciation and really understanding how the sounds of language work. All right, let's see. Lucio says, hi, my teacher, I'm from Brazil. Lucio, Jurima, nice to see you there. Wendy, language enthusiast, good morning from Nagoya. Look at that, we got quite a few people from Japan today. Is it a holiday today? I don't think it is. Let's see. Oh, Kino Densha no Deshimasu. Oh, really? Oh, really? You rode on the train yesterday. Let's see. Joel says, good evening from Brazil. Hi from Osaka. Ray. Good morning from Sudan. Aurel. Oh, my goodness. Pardon me. I'm not trying to look angry. I'm like getting older. I need to be able to look squint to see this tiny font. Aurelina, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Brazil. Also, Jokes Fly Over Sup. Salutations from Russia. Hi from Colombia. Tao says, hello, teacher. Annette, nice to see you there. Well, greetings from Germany. A little balm for the soul. Look at that. Wow, you took I guess you're in Germany right now. Your teaching is very special, says Toa. It's I'm just trying to help you learn the same way your parents helped you learn your native language. So think of it like that. Like it's not so special. It really is just a very basic way about people getting fluent in the language. Alejandro says, what's up? Lith says, what's going on? I like your teaching from Abidjan. From Ivory Coast. Very nice. And como está en Tagalog? ¿Cómo está? I don't know Tagalog, actually. Ohio from Osaka. Says Yanagi-san. And look at that. Hi from Korea, Elino. And Bridget, Brilliant Discovery. Teacher Drew. Rafael with the @ mark. Good morning, all of you from India. Hello from Morocco. It is a pleasure to hear listening to you. Very excellent from my learning from Saudi Arabia, and hello from India. Okay, all right. I'm trying to go through these quickly so I can get back and make sure we just go through this. So if we're trying to get into the inner circle, how do we do that? So you are out here and maybe there's some native speakers. Let's imagine you work at a restaurant. I think this comment was specifically a guy who is, I think it's a guy who is a manager at a restaurant who is a non-native speaker, but he's able to communicate with people well. But he noticed that when he's in a group, he's got other natives around him, he suddenly is outside of the inner circle. Okay, so he's outside of the inner circle. They are talking about whatever, and now instead of having a one-on-one conversation where you're able to communicate, you basically create a circle for your communication. Now you are outside of the circle, and now they are talking about something else. So the first thing, there's basically two, as I mentioned. So the first thing is really paying attention to what other people are saying for that particular group. And for you, in your life, you just have to choose what this group of people is. So it could be a group of people at work, or it could be a group of people at school, or it could be movies and TV shows. It doesn't matter what that thing is, but each group will have its specific vocabulary, and it could be, again, for professional reasons. Maybe you want to know particular vocabulary that doctors use, or you want to know even particular vocabulary that doctors should use with their patients. So it's, again, different kinds of vocabulary, but if you have a particular goal, that is the thing you should be focusing on. So like for me, for example, when my wife was pregnant, we had to go to the clinic, and so I have two children now, and each time we were at the clinic, I'm on the outside here. So the nurses and my wife are talking about, baby stuff and women things. I just don't know the vocabulary for that. But if I pay attention and listen to that vocabulary, so the first thing I'm really trying to do is just listen like, oh, okay. And typically, we go for maybe a few appointments and we hear those same kinds of things, whatever, for that. So I learn vocabulary for, having a baby or raising a baby or whatever. All of that vocabulary, I can kind of get into the circle just by listening to it. All right. So even if I don't say anything, I'm focusing on this particular vocabulary for this situation so I can become part of the inside, that inner circle, okay? And when I do that, again, I can do this with that particular group of people, or I could go to a YouTube video. I can learn pretty much any vocabulary I want to for that particular thing. So even I could learn, if I'm, let's say, a kid at a high school, and I'm going to a particular high school, I can probably find other kids who have maybe social media, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and I can listen to those kids making videos from that particular school or whatever. So I could even be that specific about the kind of inner circle that I want to know more about, or I want to learn that vocabulary. But the point is, pick a target, okay, whatever that is. And then I would get lots of varied examples of that vocabulary. So again, here I'm talking with my wife, and really just maybe sitting and listening to doctors, or I'm asking her some questions or something. But in this case, I'm just trying to get more examples of the vocabulary, and I could get that from, again, YouTube or Instagram or blogs or whatever that are teaching me for that specific thing, okay? So it could be other people telling me about that, and this gives me enough input that helps me understand something well enough that I can slowly, or maybe even quickly, become a part of this inner circle, okay? So people might be talking about something, whatever that thing is, you're spending most of your time trying to listen and getting lots of varied examples of that vocabulary. So if I want to work at a coffee shop and I don't know anything about coffee, I should probably pay attention to what people are talking about in coffee shops. I should watch YouTube videos. I should read blogs. I should, read a magazine or whatever. I can get a lot of information about that, and that will give me the vocabulary I need to start communicating with people. All right. Now, what happens when you actually start communicating? This is where we've got step 2 over here, and this is where we start using the vocabulary we have. So the first part is we're just getting the vocabulary. We're just trying to feel more comfortable. And the second part is all we need is really one word or phrase to tell these people. So let's say a situation like this. It's my wife and her doctor, and then I'm standing there. but I'm still going to move myself out of the circle here. So maybe I'm kind of getting a little bit closer, but my wife and her doctor are talking about something. I'm standing there with them, just listening. But as soon as like maybe the doctor says something and I say something that uses that vocabulary, it's probably going to be a little bit surprising for them. And at that moment, this is where the circle opens up for me, even because I just use one phrase, one word, something like that lets them know, oh, like, look, that person is in the club with us because he used basically like a secret code. So I'm using the vocabulary that they're using, and that puts me in the circle. And so if you're even standing with a group of people, you could still be technically on the outside of that if you don't really know what they're talking about. But as soon as you say one thing that they can kind of connect with, like they're talking about a movie or a TV show, and I say like, oh, like I really like the episode where this happens. It's like right then, just because I said that one thing, even if I'm not a great communicator, now I'm on the inside, okay? So the interesting thing about this, and you will, again, this happens in your native language as well. If you're talking with people, again, you could be on the inside or the outside. It's kind of like what they think about that. So these people are already in a circle by themselves. It could be 2 people or 3 people or a group or whatever, and they will allow you in if you know the secret password, which is just basically the vocabulary for that group of people. Okay, but the interesting thing about this is I don't need to know everything. I just need to know maybe one good thing. And when I say good, it's just like appropriate for the situation. So one thing, like where I'm talking about, hey, like I like that TV show, or like if I have a question for the doctor about, I don't know, raising kids or something like that. So as soon as I do that, like my wife will be surprised I know the vocabulary, the doctor will be surprised I know the vocabulary, and immediately the circle opens up and now I am inside it. All right. So I don't need to know everything. I don't know everything about, doctors and raising kids, but the point is to break into the circle, and now they're starting to communicate more naturally. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video where you have these 3 different levels of communication. There are like many more. Maybe you don't understand any English at all, but my videos are typically for people in these, 3 groups. I'm holding a marker cap over here. 3 groups. So the first part are the people who understand textbook English. And so this is people who maybe they've spent a lot of time learning English, usually through traditional methods, like they're studying through their native language. Or you could have people that are the next level up, which they can actually have some conversations with native speakers, and usually one-on-one, they're able to communicate with people quite well. But as soon as they have a group of natives, and those natives start talking to each other, that's where it becomes more difficult to understand. All right. So within those groups of people, it's quite easy to move up as you do this. But remember that the kind of highest level here is not really about fluency. It's more about just having the knowledge, the keywords or the code words or the secret vocabulary. It's not really a secret, but you can think about it that way because this is the psychology of what's happening. All right. So you have 2 people, they have a circle already because they're in conversation and they find some way to make they find some way to communicate about whatever. And you are in that same circle if it's like you and a native English speaker, you guys are in a communication circle as well. But again, you will be outside of this other one if this other native speaker comes over and they start talking about something else. Okay, so if you want to get in this larger circle, if you want to expand the circle so that you are inside the circle with everybody else, again, spend more time knowing that vocabulary, whatever that is, and that's easy to do. You don't need to have native speakers or like go to places or do anything like that. And then the second thing is look for an opportunity, or even if you just ask a question, but it's something that uses that vocabulary that they're using. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. If you have more questions about this, I can answer those. But again, I'll just look through chat, make sure make sure people understand where I'm going. with this. But this can be it can be a frustrating experience if you feel like natives are talking about other things and you're not included in that. All right, and this is not just about language learning, but this happens all the time in life. I could be talking with like a young kid, like let's say I'm talking with a 10-year-old kid, and then he starts talking with his friend about Pokemon or whatever, and like I don't know anything about that. I don't really feel bad about that, but now I'm on the outside. So they are talking about whatever their particular situation is, and it works for everything, whether you're a language learner or you're just trying to communicate with other people using your native language. But it's easier than ever. Right now, it's very easy to find information about that particular vocabulary because it's just available online freely. Now, it's more difficult to learn the vocabulary. You have to kind of spend time doing that if you don't have anyone to help you learn it, but it is possible to do. All right. So for the people that like basically these different kinds of circles or being able to talk about different things, this is why we structure Fluent for Life as different kinds of topics. And so people are learning and getting fluent in that particular vocabulary. So you're able to join that inner circle for when people discuss those kinds of things. All right. So people get to choose what they learn in the program, and that's why each person has a different, like a different way of learning or a different particular path that they take in the program. All right. Let me take a look at chat, see if I didn't miss anybody. Bolivar says, it is a pleasure to be here listening to you. It is excellent for my learning. Welcome. Glad to hear it. Again, if you know anybody else who would like to improve, do click that like button and share the video. Vivek says hello from India. Gabrielle from Uruguay. Aber says from Spain. Richard says, hi, good morning. I actually, in actuality, this is my third language, but I managed to adapt to all languages, even though they are quite different. Another issue I face is the word a lot. The word a lot of synonyms. What do you mean by that? Give me more information. You have a question about different ways of using a lot? Tom is here. Nice to see you there. Ohayo gozaimasu. Zuru. You mean yes, my name is a little bit if you're talking about me, you would write it like this. Of course, my Japanese writing is bad like my English handwriting, but that's how you would write it. Or if you want to do the whole thing. Andoryu. Let's see, where were we? And Niels is back. I wish you a good night. I'll see you next time. We have 3 a.m. Oh my goodness. It's 10 in the morning here, 4 a.m. Yes, people are all over the world. And remember, you don't need to watch this live. You can enjoy it whenever you like. Prasanna says, hi, Drew. Good morning. To see you, sir. Coming live again from Sri Lanka, Bolivar again. How often do you teach in live? Typically, these videos are Mondays and Thursdays. Japan time. Tom says, I'm paying attention. So George, again, Hail Hydra, watching those Marvel movies over there. Sergio says, hi, good morning. So like right there, like George says, Hail Hydra. And that's an example of like an inner circle kind of thing, where if I know what he's talking about, then I become part of that inner circle. But if I don't know, then I'm just like, all right, well, here's somebody just commenting some crazy stuff or whatever. And that's just how it looks on the outside. So when you're on the outside, not in the inner circle, you're on the outside. But assuming he is talking about the same Hail Hydra, I know what he's talking about, I guess, then I'm on the inner circle with him. Sergio says, hi, good evening. And Tom says, yep. Tam says, can you suggest any online forums or communities where I can interact with native speakers and ask questions? Well, typically, what kind of questions you want to ask, because there are lots of, you can just Google any kind of question you have. ChatGPT will be able to answer questions, although I do find it makes mistakes occasionally. But as I say to students, you don't have to spend a lot of time in communities with natives. What you do is the same way you get in these inner circles like I'm describing in this video. You actually spend a lot of time watching natives talk with each other. Now, this is another good reason. So what we do in Fluent for Life, for example, you have 2 or 3 native speakers who are talking with each other, and they're not trying to make their language easier to understand. So this is the kind of content you should be watching, assuming you can understand it. But this is different. Like when native speakers don't know you're listening, they're going to speak in a different way. And that's why you can find YouTube videos of native speakers talking with each other about whatever. And so you are able to learn the vocabulary. Like I watch some, like for learning Japanese, I don't really watch many like Japanese language learning specific videos. But I do watch occasionally like just interviews of like street interviews of people in Japan, or, Japanese people just doing whatever. But the point is, like, it's Japanese people speaking with each other in a natural way. So as soon as like you try to get into the inner circle, they're going to, like, if these people want to communicate with you, they will change the way they speak. And I don't want that. I don't want them to change the way they speak because I want to learn the way they speak. I don't want them to try to change how they speak to fit me. So it's better, like, if I'm in person with these people, if I can communicate with them that I speak well, then they will speak normally with me. They will, talk about whatever. But if they think I don't speak very well, they will change the way I speak. All right. And so in these situations, you should be focusing on, whatever the the language you're trying to learn. But it should be real examples of people doing it. And then you get a variety of these different examples. So you hear different people talking about the same thing. Okay? So in the program, this is what we do. You actually get to watch different natives communicating, but you learn what they say before you see the conversation. So you're prepared for the conversation. All right. So the whole point is when you're learning this way, like it's the same thing I do to learn Japanese. I just don't have a particular teacher to tell me what things mean and tell me like, watch this video and that video and this other thing. And like that would be a lot faster and easier. Basically, I'm creating my own kind of program as I go. But it's all done for you in English. You don't have to think about it. You just get the content, you learn the content, and you understand how to learn. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. But you don't need to find actual communities of people for you to speak with. The point is for you to get lots of examples of that in native speech. And it's actually easier if you don't try to talk with them because they might change the way they speak. So if you are not yet a great speaker, if you are not very confident, don't try to speak with people. Just listen to them talking. All right. And if you can hopefully get examples that help you understand things, that's why obviously you can do this in person, but it's easy online because we can get transcripts and we can see what they're saying and it's easier to learn it that way. All right. So don't look for more people to practice speaking with. You need to understand the language better. All right. That's how you erase the doubt. All right, let's see. Keiko says, good morning. Yeah, I understood how you felt at that time, Sensei. Minasan ohayo gozaimasu. Welcome. And Keiko-san, let's see. Good morning again. Setaita, very helpful for sharing this video. It's very helpful. Glad to hear it. Hi. Tomo-san. Let's see. And Vivek says, it happened. It happened. Oh, you mean understand? Thank you so much. Oh, glad to hear. I thought you were like creating a new word. I like that though. Thunderstand. That's kind of a cool word though. So Tam says, are there any specific language learning apps or software that you have found helpful? Not really. I mean, again, like make sure this doesn't fall on me here. All right. If the goal is to speak, now some people, their goal is not to speak, and that's fine, and maybe they just want to watch movies, but if you want to communicate, so if your goal is to, let's just say, have good conversations with people, then you should spend your time watching how people actually speak, all right? So like the goal, I'm trying to think of a good way to describe this or write this visually for you, but like the kind of goal, we'll just put here like a goal has to match with kind of reality. We'll just put it that way. So we want these two things. Let's say, I don't know, I'll draw this kind of like a puzzle piece, I guess. So the goal and the reality have to fit together. It's kind of like when you practice for a sport. The practice should be like a game as much as possible. All right. If I just go to a playground and I'm shooting baskets by myself, it's a different environment. I'm not really practicing like a game. And when a real game comes, I will probably not be prepared for that. All right. And so that works the same way with language learning. Now, the problem I have experienced personally trying different apps to learn languages is that the goal might be there, but like the practice is disconnected. We'll kind of put it over here, I guess. Like the practice is disconnected from the reality of the way people speak. So I might learn some useful vocabulary. Let's say I use some app and it teaches me some useful vocabulary. If I go to a real conversation and they don't use that vocabulary, then I stutter and I forget my words, and it's going to be a very unpleasant experience for me. So again, the practice of the thing, it should be like the actual thing you want to do. So for language learning, you should get examples that really help you understand the way people really speak. And so I have not found anything like that with an app. Like the reason I created Frederick, which is our app, is actually because it's trying to teach you how to read and spell. And that's a specific thing where you actually need to read it and see it and see actual examples like that. So it makes sense to use an app. But if you're trying to learn how to have conversational fluency, you really need to see lots of examples of how people speak. All right. And so the best way to do that is, getting videos if you don't have like somebody with you to speak with. But even if you do have someone to speak with, I've shown you why sometimes that's not like a good way to learn, because the native speaker you might speak with is going to change the way they speak. That's why teachers who might be native, they also change the way they speak. Like me right now, I'm changing the way I speak so that you can communicate with me like you understand what I'm saying. All right. So even if you're only sending me a text comment or something, I'm changing the way I speak, and I would not speak this way with maybe some other natives. All right. So anyway, the whole point is I've not found anything, but it is easy to create this situation where we have all these examples of native speaking. And you just think about what's the vocabulary or the situation you want to speak in. So if you are a doctor and you want to learn English for, hospital communication or whatever, watch YouTube videos or movies or whatever about that particular thing. All right. What I do as an English fluency guide is making the language understandable, because it's much more difficult to just watch movies and try to understand what people are saying. So if you have like a bridge, you can go in some easy steps to go from where you are to the actual more difficult native English over here. It's possible to do that by yourself. It's just much more difficult. So it's also difficult for me trying to do this with Japanese, because I have to create this myself. I have not found like a program that does what I do for learning Japanese. But again, it is possible to create that, and I know how to do that because I did it for English learners. Anyway, if you find something maybe that's helpful, but remember, the practice of the thing should be with like what the real thing is like. So Sergio just mentioned ChatGPT. I've done that before, trying to speak with ChatGPT, but I've found that ChatGPT can make mistakes. And another thing is, again, ChatGPT doesn't speak like reality. All right. So you will get some examples. You can get some good examples of what vocabulary might be, but it's different from how people really communicate. And so reading some text on a screen or listening even to ChatGPT talking with you, it's different from how a native would actually speak. All right, so they're going to speak a little bit more clearly. And even the ChatGPT I have, if I'm trying to learn Japanese, it's not even a Japanese voice. It's like, I don't know, like it sounds like an American speaking Japanese with a little bit of an accent, because that's just the languages that they have. But anyway, so like whatever you're using, try to make the practice like the real thing. Okay, so if I'm watching street interviews or just like if I go to a cafe, I will just sit there and pretend like I'm reading a book, but listen to other people having conversations. I'm kind of spying on people, and I actually, like Fluent for Life members will know, I recommend spying on people in this way. Again, because as soon as people know that you're listening, they will change the way they speak. Okay. So if you want to know how people really talk, you have to hear examples of how people really talk. All right. That gets you on the inside, which is where most people would like to be. All right, let's see. So hopefully that, did I finish that one already? Let's see. Oh, we got a bunch of these comments now. Oh my goodness. Namal says, hi, Mr. Drew. Awareness and ownership technique teaching is come in handy always. Sri Lanka, thanks, Drew. Yes, my pleasure. He's mentioning these different levels that I talk about for understanding. So when we first hear something, this is exposure to the language. You might not understand it or recognize it, but if you hear it a little bit more or someone explains it to you, you can reach the awareness level with your ability to understand. And then the ownership level is where you really understand something very well, and that's where you feel confident using it because you've eliminated all the doubt. All right, Elizabeth says, from Medellin in Colombia. Keiko says, great to see you again, Tom. Liz says, anybody, I want to be in the circle and I, happy face. Thanks, everybody. Wendy says, hi, Keiko-san. You look like you're very popular here. Tam says, do you have any tips or strategies for improving my pronunciation in the language? Get Frederick. Just click on the link in the description below this video and get that. There are basically two things you need to do. I've already explained one. So the first part about understanding how natives really speak, you need to see examples of how natives blend sounds together, because even if you know the individual sounds, people will speak differently, and the pronunciation of phrases is different than the pronunciation of individual words. But you also should know those pronunciations, and that's what Frederick teaches you. So it shows you how to learn the different sounds, and you can find the specific sounds you need. Maybe you're able to make some sounds but not others, but Frederick will show you what those are. So you can actually go through the app and learn the pronunciation the same way native English speaking children do. Let's see, and it says, can you tell me the difference between beware a lot of and lots of? Yeah, there's no difference for that. Let's see. You will hear natives using both of those. And again, like when I say there's no difference, I'm assuming a particular situation. Like there are lots of things here, or there are a lot of, like there are a lot of people at the park, or there are lots of people at the park. So it's important to understand vocabulary and learn it for particular situations. All right, let's see. It's cool. Yeah, H-Ray is a do. Yeah, that, like my name, it's like, it kind of sounds like do with that katakana, like do, rather than do. Both of them are not, the sound just not is not in Japanese, so they can't make it anyway, but that's the closest thing, do. Usually I tell people to call me Andy, which I don't really like that name, but it's easier for Japanese people to say. All right, Chan says, my girlfriend is a native speaker from LA and I'm Sri Lankan, but talking with her, I only get very limited vocabulary. I have to find other ways to improve. I'm fluent to some level, by the way. Yes, and so again, like if I'm speaking with my wife or somebody, it doesn't really matter who I'm speaking with, but if they think I'm not a good speaker, they will lower their speaking ability. So, like, even if I could be married, I mean, I am married to a native Japanese speaker, but if they think I don't understand something, you know, if she was like, well, I'm trying to explain something about, like, doctors or whatever, and I just don't know the vocabulary, she will kind of explain it to me like a child. And that's okay, you know, so I understand. That's how I learn what the vocabulary is. But again, if you want to get in the inner circle, they are assuming that maybe you don't understand something, so you have to show them that you do by using the vocabulary. So at first, just listen and try to understand what people are talking about. All right. And hi, teacher, how are you? I'm doing all right. Good morning. I wanted to speak English. Teacher, I want to speak English, but I have a problem with words. What I do? Well, I would spend more time getting more examples. So typically when I'm looking at these comments, I can tell typically a person's English level by the way they communicate. But most people it would easily improve if they just focus on getting more examples of the kind of speech they either have trouble with or the kind of speech that they want to use more. Eduardo says, I get pretty nervous even though I've had some real English or real conversations in English. Yeah, again, like the nervousness usually comes because you have some kind of doubt about something. And I mentioned this in a video maybe last week where it's talking about about like control, and it was just more about language learning psychology. But if you feel that you're not in control, I think that I think I remember the video now. This is the one about not being able to speak with, like, you can speak well by yourself, but you don't speak well with other people. So maybe in your mind you're trying to talk with yourself, but you don't have like a good sense for conversations. And typically, or part of that, the reason that is because you're not in control of what other people will say. So when you're talking with yourself, you are in control, you know what you're going to say. But if you're talking with other people, then you don't know exactly how they're going to respond or what they might say. So that increases the nervousness that you might feel. Sergio says, you can practice with ChatGPT. Yes, again, you can practice with ChatGPT. Be careful about mistakes and recognize that ChatGPT is still not the same way like lots of people would communicate. And even if ChatGPT made no mistakes, it's only one source of English. So just like I'm trying to practice my Japanese, I need to get many different sources of people speaking a language. That's why I enjoy like the street interviews of people, of like Japanese people, because what happens in those videos is there's usually a theme or a question that lots of people are getting. So you hear the same or different people responding to the same question, which is naturally varied review. It's like the best thing you can get. All right, see you soon. All right, Tom says, Manabu, spy on people. So I'm not really like spying. I don't really care what they're talking about. It's just more like, oh, that's how they speak. So when two like older ladies are talking with each other about something, like, okay, that's how they speak with each other. That's how those people. So I don't say like everybody, but again, I'm getting more examples. But like you get the patterns as you hear this. So if I sit at a cafe and listen to 10 different groups of like, I don't know, 50-year-old women talking in Japanese about something, I'm going to have a pretty good sense like for how they do. And especially it would sound a little bit different in Nagasaki rather than Osaka or Fukuoka or whatever. But again, like I'm getting lots of good examples of that. Amphi or Ami Photoshop. In UK, Z is Z. In America is Z. Yes. Hey, sorry, my name kind of different. It's loyalty, integrity. I see. It's an acronym. Let's see. Diana says, greetings from Mexico. Should and must difference. I don't want to cover that because it would be too long of a video, and other people are probably covering that already. But again, you should get many examples of these different things for particular situations. So try not to start with vocabulary like what does should mean. You should be thinking, in what situations do people use should? So you're trying to learn it backwards in that way, and the more examples you get, the better you will understand that. Let's see. This is a grammar doubt. Yes, exactly. Hit the like button, everyone, yes. Quran says, what now's the time in USA? No idea. You should Google that. There are also different time zones in the United States. I prefer Teacher Drew's classes than ChatGPT. So ChatGPT can be useful, and I use ChatGPT, but I've found it can be quite frustrating when I'm trying to learn Japanese with it, just because I can see it making mistakes, and I'll test it even with kind of lower level stuff, and like, why did you say that, or why are you changing formats when I ask you to not do that, and things like that. So it can be a little bit frustrating, but it is good in general to get more examples of native speakers actually talking. The nice thing is you don't have to physically be there talking with anyone. You can just find this on YouTube or wherever. Worley says, how can improve my English when I live in a country with people that speak native languages? Yeah, so I just answered this question, but the basic idea is that you become fluent by getting lots of examples of native speech. And so you don't physically need to be there with people, you just need to listen and understand what people are talking about. And as you get different examples of that, like you can find on YouTube or like we have in Fluent for Life, that's what's going to help you get fluent in the language. So the thing that like that's interesting about learning, trying to learn by yourself, and me, this is the problem I experience, is there's lots of content. It's like a whole ocean of content, so it can be difficult to try to find what are good examples of things and what are good examples that might help me with specific grammar points or whatever. If you know what those are, you can find them, but like Youglish, Youglish, Youglish. That's a site you can use if you're looking for specific vocabulary. You can enter that vocabulary, and YouTube or Youglish will give you examples of that on YouTube. But if you don't know what the vocabulary is, or you don't have anyone to really explain what the vocabulary is, that's the more frustrating part. So it is more difficult, and it just takes more time if you're trying to do it by yourself, but it is possible to do. What is more important, listening or speaking for beginners? I wouldn't say either of those really. It's just understanding the language. So a lot of understanding comes from listening, but if I want to know what an orange tastes like, this is not an orange, but if you imagine I have an orange, I'm not going to listen to the orange, I'm going to taste the orange. So the point is to understand what something is. And so listening is certainly helpful for that, but I would certainly say don't try to force yourself to speak before you're ready. So if you're not comfortable, it means you have doubts about the language. Solve those doubts, answer those questions, and you will speak more fluently. All right, good example says, Tom, I want this language from you and still discovering it. Good idea. Okay, goes, teacher, what should I do about this? The function words that are really difficult to catch for me. I'd is particularly hard. I can't catch it at native speaker speed. So like, again, when we're trying to listen to different native speakers, if you have trouble like listening to people or catching specific sounds like that, I would read a transcript first, like we do, so I recommend this for many people in Fluent for Life, certainly people who have lower levels that want to read something first to really understand it well. And then when you listen, it's a lot easier to understand that vocabulary. So that's one way to do it. Another is to lower the level of the English you're listening to. So if I listen to kids speaking English, I can usually get some like better examples of something. But if I'm listening to some people that just aren't clear speakers, then it's more difficult to get that. But again, that's the kind of thing you can use Youglish for. So if there's specific sounds you want or specific words or phrases or something, you can put that into Youglish and it will explain to you or just give you examples of lots of that vocabulary. So remember, naturally varied review is the key. Not a lot of people are going to say everything clearly, so we really should get lots of examples. But as you hear many examples, you understand the patterns, and it's easier to recognize when people are going to say something. All right, so like I should do something or I would do something becomes, we're going to shorten things like that, like I'd do something. Let's see. And Hokuimi says, how to improve spontaneous speaking? You have to know the language really well, or you have to know that specific vocabulary that you're trying to speak very well. But like another thing in the Native Fluency Blueprint, which is also part of Fluent for Life, I talk about moving like water, and this is where native speakers, like you'll see me do this a lot in my videos, but you probably don't realize I'm doing it. So I will be talking about one thing, and then maybe I can't think of maybe the best way to express it, so I may have to switch my words or say something else. So as an example, I'm trying to think of, I'll let you know next time I do it, but if I say something to appear to speak better, and it's not trying to trick anybody, it's just like because the communication is better if you can keep it flowing rather than stop and stutter and I forgot what I was going to say, that we're trying to solve that problem. And when I'm communicating, I want to try to speak smoothly and give you lots of examples of that. That's why I do these live videos. But if I'm saying something, let's say I say something and I accidentally say the word don't. So now in my mind, I have to switch to the opposite thing. Like I meant to say do. So I wanted to say do, but I said don't by mistake, and but in my mind, I'm already like, okay, I was going to say this, well, I can't say that now, I'm going to switch to this other thing over here, and I just reverse the sentence. So as an example, I say something like, what I do recommend, so I want to say that, so what I do recommend is going to school. So as an example, so what I do recommend, so do, we're using do here for emphasis. So what I do recommend is going to school. So I recommend that thing. All right. So what I do recommend is like going to that restaurant or doing this other thing over here. So what I do recommend. But I accidentally, for whatever reason, I say don't. All right, so I might say, oh, what I don't, but in my mind, I have to very quickly switch and move like water, switching to something else. And so I'm saying, oh, what I don't recommend is skipping school. And so in that, like, it's like, ooh, like, because I know the language well, I'm able to manipulate the language well without people realizing that I'm doing it. Okay, so if you look at people who are professional speakers, that's what they're doing. Like, and you watch them carefully, you will see when they do this kind of switching from one thing to another. All right, I should probably make a video about like examples. I think maybe I did one time. I don't remember. But anyway, this is what people are doing. This is what I'm doing when I speak. So when people say, wow, you're able to continue speaking, it's because I'm able to switch back and forth here. Now, I'll mention very briefly, I talk more in detail about moving like water in Native Fluency Blueprint. But again, when we're talking about switching from one thing to the other, fluency means that you know the vocabulary really well. I don't have doubts about using the vocabulary, so if I accidentally say this, I don't have to say, oh no, I didn't mean to say that, I just switch to something else. And this is also other vocabulary that maybe non-natives also know. And the kind of deeper idea about moving like water to continue fluently speaking, and I've talked about this in many other videos, is that if you're trying to explain something and you have only one way to say it, then you will get stuck. So if this, like, let's say I only know how to say the word don't, for example. So if I say something, oh no, I forgot the word don't. I can't remember what the word is. So in this way, I only know how to make like one sentence in this way. And that means I'm trying to express an idea and I can only say it in one way. But a native could actually express that same idea in many different ways. And that's what's happening when people are speaking fluently. So if you watch a really good speaker, what they're doing is they're trying to express an idea, and they could say that in many different ways. But what happens with non-natives is they usually have just one way to say something, and if they forget that one way, that's when they struggle, okay? So it's not really about knowing more vocabulary, it's just knowing the vocabulary really well so that I know, oh, like, I know the word skip, like I'm like skipping, like running, skipping, like you probably know that kind of skipping, but skip, because I know the word well, I know various uses of it, I also know skip means to not do something, all right? So as an example, like if I have, I don't know, I woke up late, so I skipped breakfast. So I did not, like I skipped over that thing. I jumped over that thing. Like I'm just like la la la, skipping, skipping like a child might skip. So I'm skipping something. So I can skip breakfast, I can skip a workout today, or I can skip, skip school or skip something. We're talking about not doing that thing. So as a native, if I forget or I don't use something and I can't think of the exact way to express it, I just easily switch to something else. And I'm able to do that because I know the vocabulary really well. It's not because I know more words, it's because I know that vocabulary very well. So even young kids, like they will try to say something, and especially if you watch like my daughters, they're trying to explain something in Japanese or English or whatever. Young kids, they are still developing this ability because they don't spend enough time. Well, they do, but they're basically getting a lot of vocabulary examples, but it's not very systematic like this. So they might hear something, and then maybe a year later they hear a different example, something. But again, this is how they develop this skill over time, just by knowing the vocabulary very well. So if I forget this word, but I remember this word, then I'll just use that word. Okay? So I call it moving like water because you can imagine, like water, it just goes around a rock. So if you forget something or you stumble, like, you just move around it. You go to something else. All right? And you're able to do that because you know the vocabulary well. It's not because you have more vocabulary, it's just because you know it so well. All right? So when people only know one way or one translation or one example of how to say something, like a greeting, if everyone just says hello, that's all they know how to say, then they're going to be surprised when natives say hey or hi or what's up or what's happening or how you been. Okay? So these are all different ways of expressing the same thing. So if you're trying to become fluent, you want to learn to express yourself, to communicate fluently without stopping and stuttering or forgetting words. Just spend more time knowing your words better. And you do that by getting lots of different varied examples. So lots of different examples from different people, hearing things in different tenses, in different speeds, really understanding what vocabulary means. And I promise you, if you do that, you will naturally become a good speaker automatically. Okay, so this is what I call learning English as a first language. You're spending more time getting many varied examples of things. That's why I do this in every video, to really help people understand and see, like, oh, this is actually how it works. I'm giving you examples. So you should feel, when I give you this example of skip, you should be feeling, oh, like, if you didn't know that already, look at that. Now I know another way to use the word skip. And that also gives me another way to say not doing something. So a friend of mine says, hey, did you have breakfast today? No, I skipped breakfast. I wasn't hungry. Okay? Or you could say, no, I did not eat breakfast. Like, I can take some, regular textbook English, which is fine. But if I want, I skipped breakfast this morning. Okay? So when you hear that, like, you should feel like, like the aha moment comes as you get more examples, as you really learn something, you really understand it well. Okay? So notice, like, I did all this I don't have a plan. I don't have a lesson plan in front of me. I'm just looking at the comments as I get them. But I'm able to do that because I know the vocabulary well. All right. I don't have like a super huge vocabulary. I bet if you looked at the words I use in all these videos, I should probably do that. Like, run all this vocabulary through ChatGPT or something. But you would see the number of words I use is not very big. And they're not very advanced words either. Okay? So I know the vocabulary well. I'm able to use it well. I'm able to use it fluently because I know it well. Okay? And you can do the same thing. So don't try to spend your time speaking with lots of people. Spend more time getting more examples of the language. All right? So you can either do that with me, like what we do in Fluent for Life, or you can try to do it yourself. But it is possible to do, and you can do it. All right. What is the correct sound for the word apple? Oh, you mean the pronunciation of it? Like an apple, like apple? I mean, I would say it like that, apple. You might hear somebody say it differently. But if you're looking for pronunciations of words like that, just get Frederick. We take you through over 2,000 words and sentences, and you can hear how these different words are made, like apple, and that's the just using a short A sound, like apple, cat, bat. So that's level 2, actually. Level 2 and level 3 cover that. All right, Tom says, let's see. All right, let's see. Sir, I like to read articles about politics, economy, etc. By reading articles, I realize that my English is lack of vocabulary. Yes, so if you're interested in something, then the more input you get for that thing, if you understand it, it will help you get fluent. So if you feel like you're on the, not in the inner circle, then get more examples of that thing. All right, let's see. I can see here that most of people wants more speaking than understanding. Yes, and so this is like, and the interesting thing for me, like, or kind of the surprising thing for me, so I am a learner. I am a language learner, but also, the guide. I am an English teacher. And so as a learner, like all of the things that I do, those are the same things that I teach, and I teach those things because they work for me, they work for my students, and they've gotten me fluent in Japanese. And the interesting thing is that, like, again, so I'll do this here as like language learner, language teacher. So what I'm doing as a learner and a teacher, so this is, I'll use English for example here, but this is the English as a first language example, and then the English as a second language, which is what most people are doing. So for me, learning English as a first language, or learning Japanese as a first language, I want to listen, and I want to really try to understand the language a lot. So I'm not talking. So I'm not trying to talk. It doesn't matter where I live. I could get fluent in, I could live in Saudi Arabia or Texas or wherever, it doesn't matter. And I could still get fluent in Japanese because I understand how to learn. And I'm not trying to talk because talking is the result of me understanding the language well, okay? So I could try to talk if I don't understand something, but I probably won't feel very confident or speak very well. So it's much better for me to just understand the language well. But with ESL, there's it's lots of people talking, but people not talking very well, and lots of wasted time trying to find people to practice with or whatever. So they're like, I don't live in an English-speaking country. What can I do? You know, everyone says you should be speaking if you want to become fluent in a language. And I just say, why? Is that helping you? Just take a moment and think about that. And because I thought about that, I'm trying to speak, but I don't feel more confident. What's the problem? Okay, I'm trying to speak. I don't feel more confident. What's the problem? The problem is, if I still have doubts about the language, I'm not going to feel confident saying something. Okay, so I feel confident about some things, but not yet others. So I'm going to need to practice those things more. And by practice, I mean get more examples of those things so I really understand what that means. And when I get that that aha moment, if I can figure that out, and usually I just have to kind of figure it out myself because I don't have a specific teacher to help me. If I can do that, then I feel confident about speaking. So in the ESL way, the typical way, you're trying to look for lots of speaking opportunities. But when you're in those speaking opportunities, often people are not feeling very confident, and they don't really say very much. And even if they have these speaking opportunities, like you could speak with the native is going to change the way they speak, so it's not even the way they normally speak with other natives, which is the topic of this video. All right. So stop looking for speaking opportunities and look at all the content that's available right now. You don't need to go anywhere to do that. You're already learning with me right now, and we're not in the same room. So you could do that. I would not talk, spend more time trying to understand the language, and then that's how you actually become fluent. So as a teacher, I do the same thing. All right. So I don't spend a lot of my time telling people to speak. I do for the people who already feel confident. Like if you do, that's great. Get out and meet people and speak. But if you don't feel confident, spend more time understanding the language. And you can do that anywhere. So there's nothing stopping you, no excuses. It's not a time issue either. You're already probably not using your time very efficiently. None of us are, we're all spending some time messing around, or while we're doing something else, or we're looking at our phone or whatever. And so there's always more time you could spend doing something. And if you're understanding the language more, it will make you feel more excited about spending more time learning. Okay. But if you're doing the typical thing where you're not learning something, you don't really understand it very well, and then you try to speak, it's very demoralizing, or it's very frustrating. It's a very embarrassing and difficult way to improve, which is why I don't recommend it. All right. So this is what I used to do. So as when I was learning before, I used to try to do this, but it didn't help me. And so I would try to, just try to feel confident anyway and get into a conversation. But if you don't feel confident, you're not going to speak. All right. Or you might talk about a few things that you can speak about, but you will not maybe understand other things, or you will not feel confident about speaking about other things. But that's basically how it works. All right. So instead of looking for people to speak with, get more examples of whatever, and you can learn, like for me trying to learn, I should make a video about this, like what I do for learning Japanese, but it's a similar, it's basically this. I have to kind of make like basically I create like Fluent for Life for myself as I'm learning. Which was like kind of the same way I created it for English learners. But for example, I will have like 30 minutes of, or 15 minutes or whatever of trying to, like I'll get a particular grammar point or something. And I'm just trying to understand what that means, maybe from like a textbook example. I don't really like using it, but I don't have a different way to get those examples. So I could get it from a textbook, or I could get it from a YouTube video it's more of like a kind of teacher trying to do that, and it's rare for me to find good examples of people who can really make the language understandable all in Japanese. It's hard to find. It might be out there, but it's hard to find. But I'll spend like some of my time doing that. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting a particular grammar point or thing into my mind that I'm looking for, and if I'm really working hard about trying to think about how to learn, then I might go to Youglish and put that vocabulary, like whatever that grammar point is, and then look for examples of that. But it's usually like a nicer thing if I just watch a whole video or a TV show where I'm kind of listening for that particular grammar point. Maybe it comes, maybe it doesn't, but I'm not so strict with the learning. So what I do in Fluent for Life is I actually create the content so it's easier for me to control this for learners. So I know we're going to be focusing on this grammar point. I know it's going to be in this conversation and you will hear it a couple of times, but that's basically what I'm doing. So I'm not trying to speak, I'm just spending a lot of time getting examples of those things, and that's how I would develop fluency. So this is the same thing I teach to other people. So it's the job is easier than most people think. Just get lots of good examples of the kinds of English you need for your life, whatever that is. Right. Okay, I can see here. All right, let's see. I want to be a great English speaker, says Diana. Well, that's a good goal. I would make it more specific, like a great speaker about what? Focus on a particular thing that you're able to speak about, and then you can expand from there. Let's see. Juan Carlos says, hello. I have to use a tiny bit of ability talking, but as I get older, I've lost it, and I feel more nervous to get into a conversation. I feel like I'm walking backwards. Yeah, it's an interesting problem. It often happens as we get older, and that's another part of the psychology of language learning. But again, you don't have to be with other people in order to improve. You just need to get examples of that speech. So you can get the speech without the person being physically there. All right, that's the really amazing, the game-changing thing about being able to learn today, because you can get examples of this stuff anytime you like. Priyanth says, hi, good morning, sir. How is everything going on? All right, I hope you are okay. I always look up to you because your lessons are very important to me. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Glad to hear it. And Prasanna says, why don't you laugh? I like to see, sir, when you're teaching, it's very nice. Why don't you laugh? What? You mean laughing? Well, I laugh sometimes if something is funny to me. Mr. Kraft says, can I learn a second language like Japanese, for example, behind English, for knowing my English level is B2? Well, they would be independent. So you learn Japanese and you learn English. I would not try to learn English through Japanese, but if you're learning Japanese and you're learning English, you could. Ilda says, all right, man. All right, I don't even know what you're saying. Foos your dues. I picking a while. I don't know what that means. Or I get maybe that's some phonetic way of saying something. Keiko says, thank you very much. I'll try to listen to various uses of I'd repeatedly. I also use a Youglish. Thank you. Tom says, I didn't know Youglish, Keiko. Is it good? Yes. So again, like that's a website you can use to search for particular vocabulary. So if you know what you're looking for, Youglish will find examples of YouTube videos and let you hear those examples. So that's a kind of naturally varied review. Grubb says, hi, good morning, sir. Love from India. It's been 2 days since you last came online. Welcome back. Well, yes, I mean, I don't make these videos every day, but yeah, I try to make some new content for you guys. Receiver says, what I noticed that locals practically always re-ask me to clarify what I did say when I have a conversation with them. I have no clue why. Could you make a class not to simplify it? Like, well, why? Again, natives are paying close attention to you because they would be the better speaker. It's like they're like a coach kind of, and you're the new person on the team. And so they're maybe going to be a little bit nicer to you. And even though it's frustrating for them to repeat something or ask you to repeat something, they're getting that from you. So if you really have to demonstrate your ability to know the vocabulary and, if you can, good pronunciation. So if you had to pick one of those two things, I'm trying to get into a conversation with someone, like I could pronounce something really well, but maybe not be a good speaker or know many words, and people would welcome me into the inner circle. They would probably quickly discover that I don't know the vocabulary very well, but having good pronunciation is a good way to get into that, because it's telling them that I'm actually saying what I want to say. So as an example, when I first came to Japan and I'm trying to learn vocabulary, my pronunciation wasn't very good. And when people, even if I know what I'm saying and I know I'm saying something correctly, if my pronunciation is not very good, then they will assume I don't know what I'm talking about. So I told people I was working doing gardening. And they were like, what? Like, what gardening? Like, what are you talking about? You know? And I had to explain it a couple times, because I mean, even if I said it correctly, they assume I don't know what I'm talking about, or they assume I'm talking about something else. So they're trying to figure out what's happening, and that's why you get that problem. So it's on you as the person trying to get into the inner circle to communicate correctly, or to give them some indication that you know what you're talking about. So if I talk with some, what was that? There was some, I think a TV show or something where Steve Buscemi, this is an actor, he's an old guy now anyway, but he tries to talk to these high school kids. He's like, hello, fellow high school kids, how are you? And he has a baseball cap on backwards and stuff like that. And this is I think a meme now, but basically where someone who is clearly not a part of that group and is obviously not a part of that group, it's more difficult for those people to welcome that person into the group, because they would just think, well, he's not going to know what he's talking about or what we're saying or whatever. So that's the point of this video, about you making it clear by understanding the language well, or actually, if you can, to actually say it well and pronounce it well when you do say something. So if I say something that indicates to those people that I know what I'm talking about, they will let me into the group, especially if I can pronounce it well. All right. So work on those particular things, and people will they will ask you to repeat yourself less, if that makes sense. Right. Let's see. I haven't used it either. Dennis says, the day when I could be rolling the problem around and talking. Tom says, I'll give it a try. Monica says, saludos desde Guatemala. Muy buen nivel de inglés. Excelente videos. Well, I'm glad to hear that if you're understanding my videos. If you know other people in Guatemala or anywhere else, then tell them to watch. The receiver says, I mean, not to simplify the language, please. I see. Where is your likes? You would say, where are the likes? Where are the likes? Or where is your like if you're talking about individual people? All right, let's see. So Bridge says, I heard someone said in a conversation, I had it given to me. True is had a verb in the sentence. Well, you're talking about something having been done for you, I had it given to me. It's just it's a different way of saying it was given to me, or either they're just saying it in kind of a polite way, or it kind of depends on the situation, like what you're talking about. Even looking at that sentence by itself, it's not enough context. But just to answer the question about like had, like it would be had given as one thing. That would be the verb. Let's see. Teacher, you gave me great advice. If I memorize words, I gotta put the words a lot of example. Yes. Well, remember, like it's easier to get more examples that you really understand rather than just trying to memorize a word through repetition. So varied review will help you understand much faster. Jackie says, "I'm a truly trust your method." You would say, "I truly trust your method." Yes, glad to hear it. Remember, you should, anything I say to you, you can verify it for yourself. So if you think I'm incorrect, then go ahead and try it and find out. And most people will find that they understand the language better, and if they understand better, they speak better. That's how it works. And this is the same way you got fluent in your native language, so it should work. But I'm glad to hear it. Namal says, "Please take a water break." Thanks. Mr. Kraft says, "I have a problem when listening." You would say listening to you. "I fully understand you, but when I listen to podcasts or episodes talking about a story, I can't understand it well, but I can know what they are talking about." Yes. So that is part of the topic of this video, is you're understanding me, and I'm speaking at a lower, easier level of English. So if you want to understand higher levels of English, you need to listen to that kind of English. So I put the example before here about the practice that you get. It should be like the reality. So if you only listen to like English teachers and you're not getting good examples, and really like you kind of need information in between me and listening to podcasts by native speakers. So this is what we do in Fluent for Life. So we actually move you step by step from this lower level to understanding how natives actually speak. All right. So either you do this by yourself and you eliminate the doubt that way, or you do it with me. All right. But you have to do this if you want to get from this level to that level. That's how it works. No getting around that. All right. Cam says, "Sorry, I just arrived at the end of the show." It's all right. And then hi from Sudan. Look at that. We got through all of the questions and comments. Hopefully everyone has enjoyed this. Remember, if you want to get into that inner circle, you don't have to spend a lot of time speaking with people. You just need to listen, understand, really feel confident, eliminate the doubt that stops you from speaking. And then the speaking becomes a natural, automatic thing. It really is that easy. All right. So stop trying to focus on speaking, focus on understanding, and you will feel much more confident in conversations. All right. IRF says, "Mr. Drew, good to hear you again. I'm really struggling connecting ideas. Is there a class from you about connectors, such as how to use them as a native speaker? Thank you." We do cover this in Fluent for Life, and also in some YouTube videos. I talk about different ways of doing that. I forget the names of those specific videos. But if you look at the live videos, you should see examples of that. I usually talk, like the title of the video is about the topic of the video. if I'm like saying that poorly. But basically, if you look for how to make connections or topics about that, about continuing to speak, you will find lots of videos about that. I think there's one, it's like getting more popular recently, about like the bottom of it has like a chain on it, like a picture of a chain. So if you look at my live videos, you should see that. All right, Kiko says, "Thanks." And again, to Tom, Wendy, everybody, and Jan, I'm following you. Thanks. Really glad to hear it. Thanks, says a BASM. Well, remember, you can learn to communicate confidently and fluently. You just have to spend more time understanding the language first. So make it easy for yourself. You don't have to go anywhere or speak with anybody or spend a lot of time doing it, but just be smart about how you do it. When you understand something, even try to understand one thing, just to prove that what I'm telling you is correct. Just try to understand one thing. Spend one, I don't know, like an hour or even 20 minutes or something, pick a particular grammar point or word or something, and get a bunch of examples of that thing. And I promise you, if you understand it better, because you get good examples, like if you can, just like I gave with the example of skip in this video. But I've done that in many videos. And if you can get fluent in one thing, you can get fluent in many. All right, that's how it works. All right, let's see. Yassine says, "Vocabulary is the only way to get a good level of English." Well, I mean, you have to have some words in order to communicate. So the vocabulary itself is inescapable. But yeah, I don't quite understand the sentence, or the question. But in general, rather than trying to learn more, you should know the vocabulary better. Okay, so most people will not do that. And that's why most people will continue to struggle, because they would rather like continue to look for more information rather than get good at the vocabulary they already know. All right, even though it's the easier thing to do. All right. The tricky part about that is that the mind is naturally interested in new things, and so that's why the mind is always like looking for new content to watch. All right. So you need to trick your mind in order to give yourself the review that you need to get fluent. And so this is what I call naturally varied review. That's why I keep explaining this about different examples of the same thing. So if you watch the same content over and over, it's going to get boring for you. But if you have a couple of different things that talk about the content with different speakers or speeds or in a slightly different way, that won't be very boring for you. And if you're interested in that and you feel your improvement, you will actually do it. So it actually is easy to learn the language that way if you take your time and focus on that. Let's see, Ginato. Hi, my name is Tamer. Is there a main method that applies to all the languages for learning them? Yes, it's just called learning that language as a first language. That's it. So I call it like EFL, so learning English as a first language for people learning English, but I learned Japanese as a first language as well. That's basically the way to learn any language, because it's how you got fluent in your native language. Just do the same thing again. All right. But remember, even when you learned your native language, you weren't spending a lot of time talking with people, especially when you were young, because you couldn't speak. You're just listening, getting lots of examples of the language. And over time, you really felt comfortable, and that's when you started speaking. Okay. So just do the same thing in English. And either you can do it yourself, or you can have someone like me help you do it. All right. Receiver says thank you. Bridget says thank you as well. Have no doubt about not clear pronunciation now. All right. Get Frederick down in the link below the description. It will help for anybody out there trying to improve their listening and pronunciation. Hokuimi says, are you an American? Yes. I'm from Chicago in the United States, currently live in Nagasaki, Japan. All right, that's it for today. Have a fantastic day. Do click on the links in the description if you'd like to learn more. Even if you don't join any of the programs, you should learn more about how to get fluent, because it's really the thing that's going to get you fluent as quickly as possible, whether you're learning by yourself or with me. All right, have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.